Your car guy here. Today, 2003 Volkswagen GTI with the 1.8 turbo motor, or a 1.8T. And what we are experiencing is that the vehicle, especially on hot days, will run for a while, then it wants to die. The engine light comes on, of course, and if you let it sit, it'll restart. Sometimes it'll just kind of chug along, maybe experience low power. So we've got a couple of codes that are related to this. If we look, we have our P0322, and then we're going to go down to our P0321. Ignition, distributor, engine speed, input circuit, range or performance. Ignition, distributor, engine's input speed, no signal. That signal is from the crankshaft position sensor, which mounts at the back of the engine block towards the front of the motor, between the motor and the radiator. This is what the part looks like. And it's a fairly common failure on these vehicles to have this crankshaft position sensor fail. Now, this looks like a fairly simple job. If you're looking at this, you say, hey, I've got one bolt that's going to hold that sensor in place and plug up my wiring. But I'll show you why it's not the easiest job. If we look inside the engine bay, this sensor actually mounts way down inside, and if you can see, it's actually that little dirt covered thing right down there next to the oil filter. So it's difficult to get through from the top because there's a lot of stuff in the way. It's difficult to get to from the bottom because there's a lot of stuff in the way. Now, before we go ahead and remove that, it's a good idea to take, if you've got a pressure wash around that, keep it a bit clean, because when we remove that sensor, we don't want all the junk and dirt from the motor falling in, and it also just makes it a little bit easier to clean it if you can, if you have a pressure washer. Unfortunately, someone has borrowed my pressure washer right now, so I'll be having to just wipe it off with a rag, do the best I can, maybe clean it with some brake clean, and we'll work through getting this done. One of the things I am going to do is I'm going to get the vehicle up on a jack and some ramps so that it's easier to get to, so I can work from both the bottom and the top as needed. Okay, here we are underneath. I've wiped off that sensor, and you can see it right there behind the oil filter. It's got the one bolt is directly above it. You can just see the edge of it there. It's kind of difficult to get into. You can get that bolt out without taking anything off. Now this one, I see that the harness is not connected into anything other than it's just plugged in and loose. I think on most of them you're probably going to find a bracket that harness is attached to, but you should be able to get in here. Worst case scenario, if you need a little more room, go ahead and take the oil filter off to get some room to do that. But I believe I can get this done without removing the oil filter. So we're going to take a 10mm, remove that bolt on top, pull this one out. Alright, I've got the bolt removed. I used a 1/4" drive ratchet with a 10mm on it and was able to reach up in there with it fairly simply and get that bolt. Like I said, it is a little bit easier if you remove the oil filter. I've left the oil filter in, but was able to get it. The next thing you're going to do is just pull that sensor out. It's going to pull straight away from the block. And if needed, you can maybe pry just underneath it towards that end where the wire comes out. Because you're putting a new one in, don't worry too much about breaking it, but still try to be gentle and work it as you pull it out. If you need to twist it side to side, so rotate it clockwise and counterclockwise to help break it free, go ahead and do that. It does have an O-ring seal as it goes into the engine crankcase and reads off of a tone wheel that is on the crankshaft. So now I just gently popped the sensor out, used a small pry bar to reach up there and pop it. And it's now just hanging by the electrical connection. Now, this is where having the oil filter out might be a little easier. If you look, this side where you see that rectangle sticking out the side, that is the lock. From the top, that is a squeeze lock that you could grab and then pull out. If needed, from the bottom, you could actually take, and I don't know if you can see inside there's a little tab up next to the sensor connection body that you could just take and shove a screwdriver up into and unlock it. I'm going to grab a screwdriver and show you that. All right, we got the sensor here. We're going to take our screwdriver and use it to unlock that tab. I'm going to get it into place and I'll show you. Okay, what you can see I've done is I've inserted that screwdriver and I've pried that tab outward away from the body, and that will allow me to unlock and simply unplug my sensor. So now we can just plug in the new one. There's our old one, and put it back in. Something I've done to make this a little easier to get the plug put back in is I've pulled the sensor wiring up through the top to where I can hold it and now plug my sensor in, and then I can feed the sensor and wiring back down into place. I've plugged the sensor in, and you can tell it's down all the way because the tab that's inside this little cover is down fully against the body of the new sensor plug. Now I'm just going to feed it right back down into position, push it into the block, and bolt it down. One thing you will want to do with this O-ring to make sure that it doesn't roll or tear, put a little bit of engine oil as lube or even a little bit of saliva around that O-ring to give it a little bit of lubrication as it's going in, and it will make it go a lot easier. Okay, I've just popped the sensor back in. It went in pretty easily, and then put the bolt that you can just see sticking up over the top there in. I've used my fingers to finger tighten it. You want to do that just to make sure that you don't have it cross-threaded. It's a small bolt, and if you break it, you're going to have major work to do to fix this. Remember, because it is a small bolt, it doesn't take a lot of tension, so when you tighten it up, just get it snug and a little bit, but do not go with a long-handled ratchet or anything like that and pull too hard. You will break this bolt. We're talking like 6 foot-pounds, maybe less, to have this thing tight. So just going to tighten it up, and then we'll clear our codes and give it a test. All right, so here it is. We've cleared our codes. Check engine light didn't come on. It started very easily. All signs that everything's working good now. Just remember to, if you don't have a scan tool to clear your codes, either take it to your local auto parts store or find a friend that has a scan tool, and you can have them reset the codes. Now we should eliminate our stalling as we drive, especially when it's hot. This is your car guide. Please like and share our videos. This same process should work for your Jetta, Golf, GTI, anything with the 1.8T motor. So you can use it for any of those. Please subscribe to our channel, help us grow. We will be doing a giveaway shortly as we reach 1,000 subscribers of a scan tool. So keep your eyes out for that, as we'll be doing that giveaway very, very soon.